Good morning and welcome to our UBC Learning Circle, making space for Indigenous-led research at UBC with the HELP team. And today's conversation is presented with the Center for Excellence in Indigenous Health, and we'd like to thank the First Nations Health Authority for generously funding the UBC Learning Circle and allowing us to have these conversations. Before we formally begin, I'd like to acknowledge with respect and gratitude that I'm joining you from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. Please feel free to introduce yourselves and the nation you're calling in from in the chat box. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarain Squawkin. I am Syilx Okanagan on my mother's side and Hickory Apache and Belgian Settler on my father's side. I will be the moderator for today's discussion, and joining us working behind the scenes is Cynthia, our production coordinator, and Kira, our program assistant. They'll be interacting with everyone in the chat. So you'll, if you see any messages from them, that's from them. And finally, before we get into today's discussion, I will provide a gentle heads up that the topics covered may be sensitive or emotionally triggering. Please make sure that you are looking after yourself, and if at any point in time you need to talk to an elder, friend, counselor, or family member, don't hesitate to do so. Now, and we will provide additional supports in the chat if you need support. I'll turn it over to our guests to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Rain. Hi, everyone. Nice to have you all here. Thanks for the introduction. We're really happy to be here today and get to talk to you. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself, and then I'll pass it to Aria to do a little intro. But my name is Sophie Carrier. I am Métis on my mom's side. We come from the Red River in St. Boniface, St. Laurent, and St. Pierre-Julie. But I have been very fortunate to grow up here on unceded Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territory. I love being on this land. I love the mountains. I love the trees. And it's so, yeah, beautiful to enjoy the sunshine today. For those of you who are down in the Vancouver area and maybe elsewhere, hopefully you're getting some sun. But yeah, I've been working at UBC for several years now on the project that we're currently on since 2022. And I am currently the research slash project lead, working on a couple projects, which I think we'll tell you about today, but kind of this big collective called Roots. So yeah, very excited to share with you all. And yeah, it's nice to see everyone. I'll pass it to Aria.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aria. I use any pronouns. I am Gitsan, Laxgeek Eagle Clan, and I also have ancestral ties to the Haisla Nation and the Hanexiala of the Kitlope region. I've been with the Roots Project for about a year and a half. And I'm calling today from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I grew up in Terrace, BC, on the territories of the Shimshan, and I moved down to these territories in 2021. And now my whole family lives down here. We're so grateful to call this place home. We're so happy we still get to have a taste of the mountains, and now being so close to the ocean. So happy to be here and so happy to be with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we have we'll start it into kind of our conversation here. And yeah, so my first question here is how did this project begin?
Yeah, I can start by answering that. So I wouldn't say that we necessarily have one project going here. We kind of have this big collection of projects, which right now we're referring to as Roots. Um, but yeah, to really kind of understand what we're doing, I think it's nice to understand our story and where we've kind of come from. Um, so back in 2021, it was a team out of the Human Early Learning Partnership, which is where Ari and I work, and the Center for Excellence in Indigenous Health, had been considering Indigenous-led research at UBC and kind of how it's been going here and what supports are around for people to lean on. Um, and they started with a partnership between the two of them and got to know each other over a very long time, from what I understand, before actually kind of starting on this work. And the original team, who's still with us today, is Doctors Martin Goon, Nadine Caron, Patricia Spittle, Drew St. Laurent, and they were collaborating with a bunch of others. But they kind of got together to ask this big question of how is Indigenous-led health research going at UBC? And I think with a lot of like questions like that, we kind of have a hunch as to what the answer is, but don't necessarily have all of like enough information to kind of make any moves or changes. So they really kind of wanted to investigate this idea of like support and structures and what's needed here to make sure that Indigenous-led research is being done in a good way in partnership with UBC. And that led them to create this project with the title Creating Structures to Support Meaningful Indigenous Community and UBC Health Partnerships, which we just refer to as Creating Structures. And there's, I think, a lot of work that went into like the prep of this and a lot of thought. But really, it was like a very open-ended project. And you'll hear them kind of say today, like, we had no idea that this is where it would lead us. But we started out with some interviews with folks who do Indigenous-led research, so researchers on the UBC side, community partners. We also talked to students to kind of build up this picture of the research landscape here at UBC. And then from there, figure out like what these structures might actually look like, and then try to action them. And so that's kind of how we've gotten to where we are today, which was doing all of this work that, yeah, started in 2021, but I don't think our project actually began until, I want to say January of 2022, which is when I came onto the project. And then, yeah, now today we've technically wrapped this Creating Structures project, which is why we get to talk about it all today, and started a couple new, what I would say are like spin-off projects from this work. So those would be the Root Circle, which maybe some of you have been able to attend. It's kind of like a community of practice, but really just a gathering place for anyone who's interested or engaged in Indigenous-led research to come and meet each other and learn something and maybe collaborate and visit and share food. And then we also have the Roots for Indigenous Partnered Research Cluster, which we just kind of call the Roots Cluster. And this is a little bit more involved for folks who are, yeah, really passionate about Indigenous-led research and making space for it to come and help inform what we do with the Root Circle and help engage with each other and uplift this good work. And then we have another kind of like newer project that's still in its beginning stages, which is called Honoring Connections. And that one is a workbook in partnership with the Indigenous Research Support Initiative, Whewell Library, and the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology. And that one we don't have a lot to say about right now because it's kind of just getting off the ground, but I'm super excited about it. And it will be another piece to this kind of bigger puzzle that we're building of all of these things that have been going on over the last few years with us and, you know, decades with everyone else at this place to kind of make this space for Indigenous-led research.
It's so cool. It's cool to just see how it's already starting off, like starting to branch off and having a lot of connection within the community. And with that, are you guys making guidelines or is it just a gathering so far?
We do have, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call them like guidelines. Like we've done all this work into looking at like what makes for good research partnerships. And so we do have findings from the research on what folks have said about the strengths of good partnerships. So things like, equal power and voice, appropriate funding, that type of stuff. And then also the challenges that they continue to face here. So I would say that those are sort of like guidelines that you could really like, if you're starting a research project, you could kind of interrogate and follow and make sure that you have the room in your project to incorporate all of these things that really do make for meaningful partnerships and that we've seen in action with researchers here at UBC and other institutions who have had really, really good partnerships with nations or communities. So they are, in a sense, guidelines, but I think with being partnered with like a community collective or organization, everyone is so different. We all have our own like culture and protocols. There's no one set of guidelines. It's really about starting relationally and making sure that you can hear from the people that you're working with and you have the room to hear from them and you have the space to incorporate it and really make sure that you're honoring that relationship that you guys have. So yeah, kind of like guidelines, but a little more work needs to go into them on the part of the researcher to really implement them.
That's cool. Thank you. And with that, how does Roots Project connect to the culture or the nations that the research teams work with? Or do you mostly leave that up to the researchers who are working with those nations? Um,
Yeah, I would say it's more like up to the researchers who are working with the nations. Like the Root Circle is very much a support for the people who are doing this work at UBC.
mhm,
Um, for a lot of you who are engaged in this work, probably on this webinar and others, you'll be familiar with this place, that it is kind of a tough area to work in when you're doing any kind of like Indigenous type of work or decolonial work. It can be really hard on you. And so the Root Circle was actually kind of a response to hearing this from people over and over and over again of like, it feels like there's no room in this institution for my type of work. Um, so it's not so much about making those direct connections with researchers and whoever they're partnered with, but about bringing those researchers together in a physical space on campus and just saying, hey, look, like there's so many of us here, like let's help build each other up. Let's find the space to engage in our own like cultural practice. Let's bring our culture into this place, which can feel sometimes a bit clinical. Let's make the time to visit and learn from each other and kind of hold that space in between. So yeah, I would say that is more the role of the circle.
cool. So it sounds kind of a bit more like a network for everyone to kind of connect on their own research and sh almost share a bit
Yeah.
about. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and we've had like speakers come and present. We've had folks present like research in progress and kind of share what they've been up to. We've done some like activities that have kind of helped spark conversation and dialogue. We did like medicine bag making. That was a really good one. Beading circles, book clubs, that type of stuff.
That's awesome. But I feel like that's such a great way to connect too, is like when you have your hands busy and then you're able to share a bit more and it's not as
Mhm.
prescriptive and like, hi,
Yeah,
this is my work, blah, blah, blah. Like it's more, oh yeah,
yeah,
well, this kind of relates to my work and whatnot.
yeah, totally. And I think Ari and I have like talked about that before. I want to say it's called like campfire model.
Hmm.
I don't know if you want to speak more to it, Aria, but yeah, we used it a lot because it's just so nice to do something with your hands, and it kind
Hmm.
of gives you the space to open up and speak a bit more freely, I think, and kind of
Hmm.
bring the comfort level for everyone.
That's awesome. And did you guys find that just within like did another partner from the Roots project suggest it, or was it something you guys both came up with along the way with your own work or whatnot, that method or
Did you know?
Yeah, I I think for us specifically, it was brought up to us by, I guess, like a fellow researcher who's part of our cluster, who brought the concept to our attention, and we kind of realized, like, hey, that's what we've already been doing. And then it really came into form once we started the Roots cluster, and we wanted to get to know our cluster members better. We decided. What better way to do that than like using this campfire method and getting to know each other while also making something together, having something going on, working with our hands at the same time. So yeah.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
I'd say too, like, because we did this a lot when we were actually doing our research too, for like the Creating Structures project. When we did our interviews, like we had paper and pens there if people needed them. Um, and so yeah, we learned that from, as Arya said, the researcher. And then I've been hearing it a lot in the last like month or two from one of the elders that we work with, Elder Dwayne, who's always saying like small motor manipulation really like unlocks certain areas of your brain and allows you
Mm.
to learn in a different way,
Hmm.
which I think is so true. So it's been a really nice way to kind of engage with people. And I love art. So any chance that we
Hmm.
can to bring that in, I'm very happy about it.
Definitely, yeah. But it's modeling something that's also that they could probably do within their own research with their communities and whatnot. So that's really cool. I like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so our next question is the Roots Project UBC specific? And if anyone was interested in joining but are not affiliated with UBC, can they still join?
Yeah. So yeah, it's technically UBC affiliated. Our projects are funded internally on term funding by UBC. Specifically, the Roots Circle is funded by the Faculty of Medicine. So we do have this kind of like health and wellness lens. But health and wellness is so much more than medicine. So we really do have it open to anyone who wants to come. You don't have to be part of UBC. You can be a community member. You can be from another university. You can be from a hospital or another site. Um, and we really believe like diversifying the circle is what makes us stronger. And so we welcome all different sorts of people to come in and join us and yeah, partake.
That's awesome. So have you guys seen a collaboration with the health authorities on Indigenous research for groups?
We haven't done a lot of work in that area. We've been mostly pretty focused on kind of like building this community up at UBC. I would love to explore that more, maybe in the coming years as we get like a bigger team together, hopefully get some more funding. We could really branch this work out a bit. But right
Hmm.
now we're trying to sustain what we have going.
That's cool. And that leads into our next question of how do you navigate changing granting priorities? And is that something that you have had to navigate?
Yeah, definitely something we've had to navigate. I think that our project is a bit like interesting in terms of grants and funding because we're not funded by any like typical like funder of research because we're not doing research at this current moment.
Mm.
And even the first Creating Structures project was it was technically like research, but it was more like research about research to try and see how research is going here at UBC. And
Hmm.
that was also funded internally. So I can't speak too much to what it's like to be funded as like a research project, whether you're a student or a faculty or staff or community member. Um, we have had some of the like results of our project talk about funding and how folks have found that.
Hmm.
But in terms of our actual experience, because we're so like internally funded, we're kind of just like working with reapplying for our funding every year. And I am a big believer in having UBC fund this work because it's situated here and it's something that they need. And so it's really nice to have the support from the Faculty of Medicine to fund this work. And the one thing I will say is they have let us extend our funding so many times Because that is something that is always a big problem when it comes to funding is like timelines and fiscal years and that type of stuff that can really get in the way.
Mhm.
Um, and funders threatening to take your funding back if you don't spend it by a certain time. And
Mhm.
as most of us know, nothing really goes to plan. And timelines I find have always been stretched and need to have that room to be kind of pushed and pulled.
Mhm.
Um, so it's been really nice to have them allow us to extend our funding. But we are very much caught in the cycle of, every year we kind of buckle down from like November to January and go and write some grants so that we can keep ourselves sustainable. So yeah, I'd say that's definitely been a challenge, but it's something we're trying to navigate.
That's yeah, I feel like it's so like it's wild that we have to continually justify this, even though we know we have tons of people requesting it. Um, I really hope you guys are able to find your funding because I know it sounds like this program has been really meaningful for your clusters and just
Mhm.
UBC as a whole. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And it's not something that's like unique to us either, like you say, like it's across the board, like
mm,
Indigenous programming is just so chronically underfunded. Like
hmm
it's hard to have to pitch yourself year after year. Like this is why the
hmm
work is important. Like especially for a university that's committed to reconciliation. Like I would love to see that more from them of just giving us the trust that yes, this is important and yes, it's helpful. And we don't want to
hmm
make you write a grant for like 1 billion hours. We just want to give you the
mm,
funding and let you use that energy to do what you're doing. Um,
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
something we've spoke about just in regards to like challenges with this work is we have to unfortunately dedicate a lot of time just to the grant writing and the reapplication process when, that energy could actually be spent into doing the work. Um, so yeah, basically echoing everything Sophie said, is definitely one of the main challenges and something that we're looking to work towards more sustained funding.
With that, if someone wants to help support the group as a volunteer um, uh, or just even just kind of as a mentee, I guess would it be mentee, the one
mhm.
that is seeking mentorship within the program, is there opportunities found within that to help support the program that you
Yeah.
guys have?
Yeah, I mean, we don't technically have anything in place right now. Like I think honestly, like maybe when I was talking to you, like was the first time I even considered like, oh yeah, I guess someone could volunteer with us if they wanted. It's never been something that's crossed our mind because we've been so small for so long.
Hmm
Um, but I would be so welcome to having volunteers. Like I would love having people come and join us. And I honestly think that we do get that very informally too, because we
hmm
have such a good community that's been built around this and people who keep coming back to events and especially with our cluster too and like the actual members who are really like alongside us working to keep this going. We
hmm
get a lot of like, what do you need? Like, can I help you? Kind of notes. So those are
hmm
always really appreciated. But I think the biggest way to help is to come to our events, come and see
hmm
us, subscribe to our mailing list, and we always do feedback surveys because we're trying to collect this information to, back to the funding thing of making sure that we can keep going. But
hmm
yeah, showing up and talking with everyone and making those connections, I think is honestly the best way to help.
Definitely. I feel like it would be such a great opportunity for like if any grant writers are just like, I don't mind writing a grant for something I know that is
Hmm
meaningful to me, then and maybe it's not all the time, but they can step in once a year if they have the capacity, like um
hmm That's a
so
really good idea.
yeah. So
Like I
if
should write
there's
that
any
down.
grant writers
We should do
on,
that.
definitely connect with Sophie and Aria. Um we have a student here that says the Roots program is an amazing resource, and they wonder if this could be shared with UBCO also. They are an Indigenous student studying Indigenous research, and they know we would. they would love it there as a resource and a support? Or are they also able to just go to like the UBC Vancouver campus?
Yeah, I mean, obviously anyone's welcome to come to UBC Vancouver. It's far easier said than done when you're not actually living on this land. But I would love to branch out into UBCO and the other distributed learning sites. Again, it's one of those things where we're kind of slowly growing, and hopefully in the next few years we'll be able to do that. But I think it's also nice that like we have so many like resources that are part of this project and so much documentation of like how this was done and like our entire story like coming through up to this point that like this can be done by other people. And I would be super keen to connect with anyone who wants to. Obviously, I would love to start the Root Circle everywhere, but we might not be able to logistically. But anyone who is keen to kind of broaden this work and share it on other campuses, who's coming to it with good intentions, I would love to support anyone in making sure that they can do that and we can kind of bring this everywhere because it is a really good model for, as again, our elder Dwayne, who's like our biggest supporter, always says it's such a good model for engaging with folks that everyone can benefit from it. So yeah.
So, great, thank you. And our next question kind of leads into what approaches have you found effective, and have there been any challenges in maintaining this level of care and respect within communications?
Mm, effective. I would say,
I think this
I
is
think,
pertaining to like collaborative and with
yeah,
communications professionals.
yeah. I honestly think it all comes down to like relationality and
Hmm.
sharing this work in that way. And it's such a funny thing that I think everyone who's part of like specifically the Indigenous community at UBC will kind of understand like how much stuff is done by word of mouth.
Hmm.
Um, and really like embodying kind of like the visiting way and like yeah, I think it's really reflective of like our own communities and systems and how that's brought here. And so I think in sharing, there's a lot of success found by kind of merging those two ideas.
Hmm.
So on one hand, having like the ways to distribute information through like mailing lists, website, like that kind of stuff. And then also just actually knowing the people who are showing up. And we met so many people from just like having a like attendee say, oh my goodness, someone would really benefit from this. Like I'm going to share it with them. I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
thank you. Like wonderful. And I always wonder how people find us and how we kind of follow these trails of like this network that's kind of grown.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think it really is like a merging of two approaches. That is has been working really well for us. And hopefully that kind of answers that question. I don't know if Ari, you have more to add.
I'll just echo the importance of relationality and building relationships in this
Hmm.
work, especially, at a larger institution like UBC. It can feel quite isolating, in your role. But yeah, even just getting to know the people in your office. We have so many people at the Human Early Learning Partnership that, aren't necessarily like and invested in the work career-wise, but they will show up to support whenever we ask, whether it's with, we host a beading circle and they come in and just learn from us, or we have people helping us develop a website. Yeah, just building those relationships has been a really key pillar in the work that we do, which again, I'm not sure answers exactly the question, but
I feel like it does. It's almost kind of going back to that theme at the beginning of building relationality and kind of bringing it back down to community, like community-led research rather than just um, Western extractive research. So, yeah. with that, what was your process in this project? Like how did it kind of come about within that?
Yeah. So I think we were really lucky in this project to have such a like process focused approach, which I wouldn't say is typical of a lot of like projects at UBC. And I was really surprised when I came on at how like kind of open-ended this work was. Which initially kind of like startled me. I was like, oh my goodness, like, okay, we can take this anywhere. And then I was like, oh, we can take this anywhere. Like, we get to kind of really, you know, think about what people have been saying along the way and pivot according to that. So I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but there was, of course, this kind of initial question on like, how is Indigenous-led research going here at UBC? And of course, some ideas on what the answer to that was. And so we started the process of talking to people who have been engaged in Indigenous-led research, whether they're researchers affiliated with UBC, community members, or students hoping to be involved. And those interviews are really like what shaped the trajectory of the work, and the structures that kind of came out of it, like the root circle. And this was such a good way to work. Like I loved having this freedom to hear what people are saying and then act on it. Especially in a place where so much tends to be product focused all the time, to have that freedom to like switch to a different path was really nice.
Hmm.
And so it was really about like listening to the stories that were shared with us, finding the connections like within and between them, and then sparking these ideas. And those voices are really what made this entire project like it's really not like we're kind of just like facilitating these ideas that have been shared with us, and really acting on them. And it's been the researchers and the students who have really been these kind of change makers, and they know what they need. They knew exactly what they needed, and we were like, okay, like how can we accomplish this?
Hmm.
And so when we were doing like our interviews, like we had a very similar process for both like the student and the researcher interviews when we were talking to them.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe I can ask Aria to share a little bit more about our process for actually talking to folks, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. So we wanted these interviews, or we chose to like frame them more as conversations, because that's what we wanted them to be, was conversational. We wanted them to be comfortable. And we wanted to embody the visiting way, which sort of removes the academic setting from the forefront, and takes a more casual and a more relational approach to research. Um, so the most important thing that we found when holding these conversations was, actually learning the students' experiences. So we really tried to make the space for them to open up and share. And to do that, we wanted to create an environment that made them comfortable to do so. So that involved things like offering tea and having snacks available, having open-ended questions, and overall just treating interactions as like more than just like a researcher participant relationship.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that was one of the really important parts of our process in holding these conversations. And then another one was stressing the importance of ongoing consent, and ongoing involvement. So, ensuring that our participants felt their voices were accurately represented after the interview stage. So, sending back the notes that we took, the transcripts, um, sort of our interpretations of what they were saying when it came to creating the sort of final product. So all throughout all the stages, we were sending back to our participants and making sure that um, it was still representing, what they wanted to have said. Um, and we also wanted to make it known exactly like where like what the final products would be and where they would be going. Um, And then the next step in the process after that was sort of like taking those learnings and putting them into action. Um, so we wanted to honor the stories that we heard. And we also wanted to honor the responsibility we had to take what we learned and do something with it.
Hmm.
So that's how we ended up, committing to the Root Circle as a way for community members, students, researchers to gather in person and learn from one another. And some of the interviewees were even able to participate in the circles. So we were able to maintain the participant involvement that we envisioned.
That's awesome. Sounds very like you're creating a space that's very welcoming, but also non-threatening too, like if you want to, yes, or if you want to change what you said, that's okay. Like,
Absolutely.
like which I feel like is just a great way to connect with people too, like it's
Mhm.
just allowing people to feel safe and trusted, like that you're
Yes.
like building that trust. So that's
Mhm.
really cool that you guys are modeling that and that researchers have the opportunity to connect with that.
Mhm. I'll also even add that we really recognized, the history of like extractive and harmful processes when it comes to Indigenous people being involved in research, and that was something that was definitely on the forefront. Was we wanted to make sure that everyone that engaged in our work felt like they had their agency and they had that sovereignty over their words and whatever um, information we collected from them.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's like just building on what Arya said. It's such an important part of doing research with any Indigenous people is understanding the history behind research because I feel really prickly when I hear the term research. Like that really gets me a little like up in arms.
Hmm.
And just hearing you talk about like our process, Aria, I'm like, oh yeah, we actually did do research. Like I feel like I forget that, like, because people will ask us, like our colleagues will be like, oh hey, like how did your research go? And I was like, we didn't do any research. Like we just visited with a bunch of people and took what we learned and did something with it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think like I'm trying to untangle like what I think of research versus what I know research to actually be, because there's such an academic definition of research. And that is
Hmm.
not the only thing that research can be.
Hmm.
And so having this process kind of like change, and we get to visit and we get to share food and we get to actually do something with what we've heard,
Hmm.
was so important not only for our participants, but for us because we're also Indigenous and we're working in this space and it can be really hard. And I feel
Hmm.
weird about doing research, but we're trying to make sure that we're going in with really good intentions and thinking really like thoughtfully about this and what's happened in the past and is still ongoing with research.
Hmm.
And how can we make sure that we're starting to change that story?
It sounds like you guys are doing it, like, and it sounds it from what I'm hearing, it's cool that you're able to do it in a way that like it doesn't seem like it doesn't feel forced. Sometimes certain approaches can feel a little forced and then it um doesn't flow in a nice organic way. Um but it sounds like you're also able to expand that knowledge of research for even your like Western colleagues of like these are this is how we've done research within Indigenous communities or like even present day Indigenous communities, like I think when you look back at some of like our oral history or some of the knowledge keepers, like um there's certain things that they would do that like having a conversation with the community like that. Um some might say like, oh well they're just talking and it's like yes, or if you dive a little deeper, it could be this or it could be that. Like, we don't
Mhm.
know. So,
Yeah.
sounds cool.
Yeah, it's so true. And like it's such a big part of like honoring process and kind of letting that
Hmm.
lead you wherever you want, because research is such a gate-kept term, but like anyone can do research. Like you can do
Hmm.
research by yourself in your home by going outside and like looking at what berries are growing on the bush at what time of year. Like
Hmm.
anyone can do research and anyone can follow a process and, hold that space to kind of ponder and consider all of these things that you've learned and then follow those trails somewhere else.
Hmm.
Especially when you're in community with other people and you get to bounce
Hmm.
ideas off each other and figure out what you need. And then you get to feel really capable and understand like what you can do and the power that you have. So yeah, anyone can do research. And I'm trying to
Definitely.
feel better about the word research. I'm
Definitely. Yeah.
learning and figuring that out.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting too because it's like what you said, yeah, you can go out and even if you think of like the berries for an example, like if you go to a patch every year and just see how, okay, like we have to shift to a new patch or this patch is there's some sort of
Mhm.
disease going on or a lot more people are coming here and just you're gaining new I guess indicators within that. Which is cool. It's cool that like we didn't even have computers and we just used our
Mhm.
brain or well, our network, right? Like
Mhm.
help support that research. So
Mhm.
it's cool that you guys
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
in a
And
sense
there's
like
so much.
modeling that, like within a modern setting.
Yeah, right. And like there's so much curiosity within our like people. And I think it's very weird, like working in this like colonial, like capitalist world, because you kind of have to like almost section those parts of yourself off. And so
Hmm.
stepping into a place like UBC, like when we're worried about like, oh my goodness, this place is so colonial, like, oh my goodness, is my work supported? I don't know what I'm doing, like there's no one around to support me, like that kind of stuff really like kind of like makes you get rid of your curiosity for a while because you're very much in a like surviving mode. And so I
Hmm.
think part of what I love about the Root Circle and being able to visit with everyone, or even just like when I go for tea with an elder, is it kind of lets me like take that breath out and say like, okay, like we're not in danger here. We're surrounded by our peers and the people that support us. And then
Hmm.
it's like you can feel that curiosity coming back and you can feel those ideas coming out and you can, yeah, really feel like motivated to work on what you're passionate about.
Definitely, yeah. It's from what I'm hearing is like it kind of takes those anxieties away that you're feeling, like because I think probably many Indigenous people face a lot of imposter syndrome, even though they have the education or the experience or the network, but within a colonial setting, it just never seems like enough. But it's funny because when you actually look at a capitalistic world, no one's ever really enough, like even the people who say they are, like if you start going down their rabbit hole, they'll probably feel that same imposter syndrome. So from my understanding of like imposter syndrome, it's like it's bringing back that sense of community and having them say like, "Oh, like I like what you're doing there. That's cool," and kind of building up that confidence within one another.
Mhm.
Mhm. That's why it's been so nice to like have like build this community that we have through our work and host these events. Speaking to imposter syndrome, I um facilitated like my first event like as like the sort of spearhead of it back in November. And I remember being super nervous. Like I wasn't qualified to do this. I didn't have the skills or the tools. And on the day of the event, I was greeted with smiling faces and supporting people who wanted to see like our team succeed. They wanted to see the event succeed. This was when we got to, make medicine bags together. So yeah, I think that, having the community support to back you up um, really does sort of melt away the more colonial anxieties of, working in an institution, like Sophie said.
Hmm.
And that event went really well.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. I
It was
love that.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And like not only the support from the community of Roots, but like the people around us as staff. Like when
Mm-hmm.
I go to the root circles, I feel amazing and I love it and I have such a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when you're working on the more like administrative side of things, or you're writing something and you're kind of, squirreled away and like alone, it can be really hard
Mm-hmm.
to feel like good about your work. And so I think having support for staff is like such an important thing. And honestly, like the entire reason that this project has been successful is because of where it was situated, which was at the Human Early Learning Partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had so many people there who have just been such big supporters of this work. And like working in a place where like I don't necessarily like feel amazing all the time about working for UBC, but I do feel amazing about working for Help. And
Mm-hmm.
we have just received so much love from the people there. And they have an Aboriginal steering committee who has shown us so much love. And the steering committee
Mm-hmm.
is like 23 years old now,
Oh, wow.
which is crazy. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what everyone else was doing in 2003, but I guarantee you, not a lot of them had steering committees.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, really having all of those people and like our elders and everyone else that we collaborate, like come and support us and show that they are committed to this work. They believe in it. They believe that we can do it as people who are, kind of younger and technically not as like qualified in terms of what a university might consider to be qualified when it comes to like degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just to like rally around us and say like you got this and we support you and we support your vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, like I could thank them like a million times for that.
Definitely, yeah. And it's one of those things where um it's bringing back that uplifting one another, and bringing back that, like that's not relevant to me, but I know someone who can help you with
Hmm.
that, and um which is community building, right? Like then those are the things we need um within our community. Is not we're not like we shouldn't be competing against each other. We should be uplifting one another. And if you don't have the capacity to uplift one another, like, just even a good thumbs up, like it goes a long way. Yeah. So, I think moving away from that, the capitalistic competition within things, it's yes, definitely funding. There is some level of like competition, but it's it's also like reframing things of like I didn't get this one, but I know something else will come next.
Hmm.
Like that positive affirmations and whatnot.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to have your people around you and really have hope for what you can do and have those people also have hope for you and belief in you.
Hmm.
And it reminds me of something that Elder Dwayne always says, which is, my circle is stronger because you are in it. Which I think
Hmm.
really embodies like everything that I believe in and all the ways that we love working is like, yeah, I'm stronger because you're here.
Definitely, yeah. Um, on the note of research, like if you guys were to use a preferable word for yourself, what word would you use instead of research?
That's a really good question. I've actually never thought about that.
I think a lot of what we do is just like sharing knowledge. I think
Mm,
that's one way of putting it. But yeah, I've also never thought about like exactly like what would I define it if not research?
mhm.
Hmm.
Because it is research, it doesn't always feel like it, like Sophie says.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like I feel like you would have something to do with storytelling
Hmm.
and yeah, sharing knowledge and like learning, but I don't know. I need to learn more of my language because I'm like, in our languages, we
Hmm.
would have one word that would encapsulate all of that. We would. I know we do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
I feel like from what I'm hearing, stories and community, like yeah, like it's so big, like when
mhm.
you're thinking about it. But I think those would be cool. It would be so nice to even just have each nation say like, this is what I think research is. And
Hmm.
Hmm.
do you remember when those word clouds kind of got big?
Yeah.
That would be cool.
That would be really cool. And I bet
hmm
there'd be some really amazing visions too for what that would be.
Hmm.
Definitely, yeah, yeah.
That's definitely something we
Um,
could bring up at like a cluster meeting or a root circle as an activity. Just how would you define research, if not
yeah, that would
research?
be so cool. Yeah, interesting. Potentially someone might already have an indigenous word that they're using.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That'd be
Make a
cool.
word cloud. We'll share it with you.
Yes, we would love to share it. Our next question is, what are your thoughts on collaborative research between Indigenous peoples on Turtle Island and with those from like Global South towards common goal of decolonization? Do you have any thoughts on this or on an approach that upholds such solidarities?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I haven't had the chance to do research like in partnership with like anyone else. But I think it is so important. Like, I think it's really part of the idea of like collective liberation. And
Mhm.
like, we all have such similar experiences and we're all fighting for the same things. That I think just as our circle is stronger because we have each other here, like broadening that even more, I think could only be helpful.
I think that a way that we are sort of moving towards that right now, it's not like something that's defined within the scope of our work, but we do have some cluster members who like their work revolves around um, research into like different forms of the effects of like colonization in different parts of the world that are not Turtle Island. So we are happy to have those perspectives and to have those people in our corner and in our cluster. And yeah, would love to explore more of that type of partnership.
Awesome. Thank you. And kind of reframing this from different approaches, can you talk about how your approach with maybe cluster members who do research for land-based research, and if you have any examples of noticing the berries as a kind, or like of someone within your cluster that has said that, or um, bringing a particular kind of attention to what we witness within, like, just on the land or out in the world, aside from kind of the traditional um, maybe health disparities or other things, and like maybe more or environmental impacts. Sorry, I was trying to find the right word. I think that's the one I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we can say to this because of how new our cluster is, but I think it's really important that we like invite folks who are doing this work into it and to come and share and talk about it and have it be topics of conversation for us because the health of the land is so tied to the health of our bodies and the animals and the waters and the air and everything. So I think it's, yeah, firstly, like part of a broader definition of health, and that's why it's really important to us. But our cluster is so new. Our cluster started in, I want to say like technically September. I think we had our first meeting in the summer.
Oh wow.
And so yeah, it hasn't been very long, but we are trying to build in more opportunities for sharing amongst cluster members because I think when we know more about their work, we can better support them as folks who kind of like help facilitate the programs and supports of the cluster. But also, I'm just curious. Like, I want to hear about your research and I want to know more about that. And I think that other folks in the cluster do too, so that they can yeah, learn from each other and potentially even work together. So I'm sorry that that's not a full answer, but that is what I can share.
No, I think that's good. I think it leaves opportunity for anyone who is doing kind of that land-based or environmental research to connect with you and, and kind of get the ball rolling on some research or dialogue or storytelling within that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So next question is, how do you reach out and engage with community? And are you mainly focused on the Indigenous UBC community, or do you go beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's like a couple different answers to this question because there's a couple different ways of looking at it. But
Mm-hmm.
specifically with the Indigenous community at UBC, like I said, kind of like a lot of it has been word of mouth, and then also kind of getting in touch with folks who already have this kind of like collection of people subscribed to like a newsletter or some kind of mailing list. So we've been trying to slowly like get in touch with people who we know could benefit from this,
Mm-hmm.
um, and help like facilitate bringing in new people. And we don't just serve like the Indigenous community at UBC, like anyone can join this. Anyone who
Mm-hmm.
would benefit from this is welcome to come. You don't have to be doing research. You can just be interested in research, or you can be curious to hear about research. Or maybe you're curious, you're a staff member and you're wanting to know how to like work towards this like idea of decolonization, and you want to come and learn something new and broaden your own scope of knowledge. um, we're really open to anyone to join. So yeah, that also includes Indigenous communities. And like I said, we're pretty new, but we're slowly starting to build out our connections. So we have like an event later this month at Musqueam, which I'm really excited for. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have been working with some elders for honestly the length of this project. And yeah, I think just always trying to bring in new people and new perspectives and build those connections so that they can branch out further. Like no one is unwelcome. So I hope that everyone does come by.
That's great. On the note of like non-Indigenous people and research, um, what would you recommend, or like what are your thoughts on non-Indigenous people um trying to incorporate or support Indigenous research? And how can they do it in a good way? Like,
Hmm. Yeah, it's a tough question. I think like intention is a big piece, and I think being really confident in your own intention. And that's not something that anyone else can speak for you on. Like, you have to know why you're doing this work. Like, what is it really for? Like, why are you wanting to do community-based research? If you're a non-Indigenous person. And then, yeah, making sure that you're going forward in a good way is a lot about like listening and learning and understanding, and knowing your specific role, which is really, I think, from what I've learned through doing this research, is uplifting the community and like, sure, lending your skills that maybe they don't have at this moment, but also helping train them so that they can get those skills. Like maybe I've heard stories of folks doing projects like based in a nation, like in a community, and they are doing, you know, some type of analysis with this computer and some program, whatever. Something that's pretty like specialized knowledge, and bringing in community members, particularly younger community members who are maybe like interested in doing this, or maybe they want to go to school or whatever it might be. They have some kind of interest in learning, and helping them learn so that the next time around, they don't need you. They don't need a non-Indigenous researcher to come in. They can do it themselves.
mhm,
So I think, yeah, really interrogating like, why are you doing this? How can you make sure that your role is helping support the nations, like really meaningfully support them? What does that even mean to you? And yeah, just trying to go forward in like the best way you can with complete honesty, transparency, humility. Yeah.
Mhm. I'll echo the humility part. That's something that has, been brought up by our elders recently. And I think going or sort of combining that with like letting go of your own like need for personal gain, which obviously when you're doing research, especially as like a non-Indigenous person, like that's your main goal is to, further your career, further your research or your own knowledge. But when you're working with Indigenous community, it's also about what you're giving back, which it wasn't always and still isn't really like in the practice when engaging with Indigenous communities. So yeah, approaching with humility, and with, the intention of building a relationship and not just doing your research and getting out.
Hmm.
Mhm. And it takes work, and you
Mm,
do have to be ready for that. Like being present takes a lot of work.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not really like a 9 to 5 presence, I might say. And we've heard that from
Hmm.
researchers who we've talked to, that it is demanding because your
Hmm.
research isn't only, going in and doing interviews or conversations. It's maybe you're going to that ceremony. Maybe
mhm,
someone's having a baby and you're going to be there. Like it really is about all of it. And so I think that's what's so cool about being able to do research with your own nation is like those are your people, like those are the places that you would be going anyway. And it really like has this sense of wholeness. So I
Hmm.
think, yeah, being prepared to be able to give and make the process easier for everyone else involved is super important. And knowing like what your role is, and part of that can be like actually dealing with this institution because it's tough to deal with. And so maybe
Hmm.
your role as a researcher is this huge administrative burden of like, for example, trying to get an honorarium. Like maybe that's what
Hmm.
you take on, and then the community doesn't even have to think about that. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah.
I like that. I like that. It's kind of a lot like still letting the community do a lot of the maybe that connection and leaving more of that Western heavy admin side on the researcher because
Hmm.
that's the part that we might not need to invest our time as much in because we need to get this research going, right? So,
Hmm.
mhm.
Hmm.
On the note of kind of that, have you guys faced any challenges along the way and how have you come overcome them over the course of um this project or this program?
Yeah, we have faced a lot of challenges, as expected. Honestly, I think an entire webinar could be dedicated to the challenges that you face doing this type of work in an institution like UBC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think what I'll say is maybe like I feel like I have two streams of thought about this. And the first is like the typical challenges that kind of we get caught up in on the day to day. So things like processing honoraria, having honoraria treated as taxable income, and then needing to collect information from an elder that I don't want to collect. Like things like
Mm-hmm.
that, where I'm like, well, this is weird. This is I don't want to do this.
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And then having, the finance team be like, why didn't you get their social insurance number? And I'm like, because I didn't want to. Wasn't appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so things like that, sustainability, as we've mentioned, funding, pressure to stick to timelines, like that kind of stuff is pretty like
Mm-hmm.
expected. Um, and then I would say that there's like another stream of challenges, which I would describe more as like personal challenges. And these are more like areas where I find the institution kind of bumps up against my personal values. And I feel like I'm very subject to like the ideas of what they think is good and right and productive. So things like visiting with an elder. Like sometimes we take the whole day and we drive to where that elder lives and we go and we have coffee and tea and lunch and work doesn't even come up. And we just visit and we get to know them and we hear their stories and we feel inspired and we feel connected. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
check my email for the whole day. And that is so important. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it might raise some eyebrows for people who aren't used to doing this type of work. And it may not be considered productive in like a Western sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that can sometimes get to me and kind of like haunts me a little if I'm like, oh, I have checked my email in like 4 hours. And I'm getting better at trying to ignore
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, so yeah, I would say like those little like, yeah, just like nagging thoughts of like colonial practice that we've just grown up with, that are
Mm-hmm.
really hard to let go of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I brought this up earlier, I think, but like being young too is another one of those where it's like you often hear that like, we don't know as much or, this and that. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been in rooms that have felt very corporate where I'm like, oh, I wonder if you guys are going to take me seriously, which is not a good
Mm-hmm.
thing to think. Um, and so I think like in Indigenous communities, like youth are so valued. Like we're such important members of
Definitely.
community. We have such good ideas, and we're also like the people who are going to live in this world when the generation above us is gone. So like you should
Mm-hmm.
listen to us because this is our future that you're talking about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think bringing that into the institution would be like really helpful for me. Um, Same thing with like education, like valuing alternative education, valuing like
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people call it the fireside PhD, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, the knowledge and wisdom of elders and knowledge keepers. Yeah, I think those things are really tough. And then I mentioned this earlier too, like it's hard to work for UBC. I feel good about working for Help. I don't feel so good about working for UBC all the time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't like UBC, I think, needs to be more of an ally to Indigenous people. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't really shown us that, and it's really hard to feel good about the work that we're doing when I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like they believe in us and support us and are making these moves that actually show us that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know they have a strategic plan, and when you read through it, it's pretty good. But I want you to show me that. Like, I want you to action that and not just leave
Mm-hmm.
it on the backs of Indigenous people to do that work. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's important that we're here because no one else can bring our culture into our work but us. But you got to help us out. Like, you need to get out of our way and you need to show us that you value us. And that can be done in so many different ways that I just haven't seen. Right down to like UBC is on Musqueam territory. Like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing for Musqueam and can you make it public? Like, like why is it so like I don't know much about the relationship and you should be doing more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like all these things where I just wish UBC showed us that they were an ally, like prove that to us, and then I'll feel
Mm-hmm.
good. But it's just so hard to like kind of exist in this space where it's like we really are working for an institution that I do not support a lot of what they do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Do you have any challenges that you feel like you've been facing, Aria?
Um, Honestly, like Sophie put it quite beautifully of all the challenges we faced. So there's not much I would add on top of that, but I will once again echo Sophie's sentiments of being undervalued as a young person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also we value the wisdom and knowledge that comes from our elders.
Mm-hmm.
But sitting in and like with the Aboriginal Steering Committee, my first sort of instinct is to just like sit down and shut up and just listen, which on one hand is very important. But I was also getting called out by my elders for, not speaking up enough and not using my voice in a room full of older people. So yeah, one of the challenges that I've definitely also
Mm-hmm.
been facing is to recognize the value of, my voice as a young person and that I have
Mm-hmm.
elders who are willing to support me. But yeah, that's just within the bubble of the Human Early Learning Partnership. We have this wonderful Aboriginal Steering Committee. And then, outside
Mm-hmm.
of that is very colonial. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, the dichotomy of that is definitely a challenge.
Definitely. Yeah, it's interesting how we don't even hear a lot about that two-eyed seeing or even relevancy within Indigenous communities, like with our youth. They say, oh, well, our youth have a lot of power, but they don't leave a lot of space for youth to share their perspective. Or especially in a colonial setting, like, it's very much like respect your elders, and it's like, I get that, but some of what you're talking about is like obsolete. Like, and we need to like bring this back to something like relevant. And that I can see that definitely being a challenge. And um some of that is like just building that community and whatnot. And sometimes elders like they don't share as much with people or younger generations right away because they also need to build that trust from um uh like I feel like it's you need to sit with them and then they'll share something with you. And they might
Mhm.
have something later on. Like I know one story that my uncle has shared with me is like he had a biologist or someone that wanted to go out on the land and they really wanted to get out and my uncle or someone was like, "Oh, we can't go out. Like, let's have some tea." And that person was getting impatient and like, "No, no, no, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go." But then finally, they didn't get to go because it was just too late and that the researcher was kind of like, "Wow, you wasted the day." And it's like, actually, no, like we couldn't have gone out anyways. The wind patterns were too strong, and it wouldn't have
Mhm.
got what we needed. Um, so it's it's a lot of like that communication, but it's also just trusting the process too, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, so.
Yeah, really is. And it actually reminds me of something else that Elder Dwayne always says. He is so quotable. I'm like, he just says the most amazing things all the time. And I'm like, I'm writing this down.
Yeah.
Um, but he says that, or he told me a couple of weeks back, he was like the Western world and everyone working in this colonial setting are so obsessed with things being something right now that they are never willing to wait to see what something could become.
Hmm.
And I feel like that is like, it's just reminding me like what you said, because I'm like, it's so true. Like you are so obsessed with this product right now that you don't give us that space to visit and to say
Hmm.
like maybe if you jumped on this project and you started right away, maybe the wind was too strong and you wouldn't have gotten what you needed. But
Hmm.
because you took the time to visit and to wait, like it's shaped into something that you never even thought it could become. And like that's what I feel like our whole project is like we gave it the time to listen and to wait. And now it's something that we needed it to be, and it came out in a really beautiful way.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Definitely. And with that, like, what have you guys have noticed with some of the learnings that have come about with the project or program? Is it a project or a program? I keep saying
Um,
it's
I
a
would say
combination.
like Roots is like I guess a program. So Roots
Yes.
is
Okay.
yeah, the cluster, the circle, the workbook, and creating structures are all part of
Yep.
Roots.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the project that we've been referring to very loosely throughout this is the creating structures project because that's what started
Okay.
the
Mhm.
yeah.
That's good
Yeah.
to know.
It's evolved
Um,
into a collection of initiatives, I would say, or a collective of initiatives.
mhm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and have you guys noticed any learnings with that? For I guess there's so many that you could talk about,
I know.
or just even like the top three that
Oh,
come to mind,
oh my goodness. I don't even know if I can pick a top three. Like,
or
there's different
top
like
one.
there's different areas. So like we do have like findings from a
Mhm.
research project. But we had communicated those in a couple different ways. So like the first thing I could think of with learnings is we have these infographics that give you like a real good summary of like what the findings were from the Creating Structures project. They're accessible. You can look at them really easily and just kind of get a good sense of like what we learned.
Hmm.
And I can put this up on the screen actually if that's helpful for everyone.
Yes, yeah, of course, yep. I
You can
think
also find them on our website too. We have
yep.
all of our materials there, but
Share
maybe I'll
screen.
share my screen here.
Yep.
So this is, for example, one of our infographics. We're still trying to figure out if we can print this and have it be readable, but right now they do exist online on our website. So you can kind of see like a little bit about what we learned here and some of the main takeaways from the research. So this is specifically the Indigenous-led research and conversation. So this is from Indigenous, allied, and community-based researchers. So here they talked a lot about what made for meaningful partnership, where they found success. Um, we pulled some quotes that we thought were really nice as well. And then um, when you scroll down, there's also the challenges. So things that are continuing to be hurdles for them. So this document is like a quick, like you can kind of see, and I won't go through it all, obviously, because there's a lot of information here, where you can
Mhm.
kind of see like what we learned in a nutshell. I really love the student one. This one is my favorite, I think, just because of there's like a nice little section on like vision for change. And maybe Arya, do you want to share about the student one a bit?
Yeah. So I wasn't there. I wasn't on the project yet for the researcher interviews, but I was on the
Mhm.
project and helped conduct the interviews with the students. Um, so yeah, I think we started off with having like the challenges at the forefront, and then we kind of switched it around and decided that we wanted to sort of start off with these ideas for change because um, the conversations that we had with the students, they had so many ideas. They brought forth their challenges. They brought forth like um, places that they've, really enjoyed and experiences they've enjoyed with their time in like UBC and working in health. Um, but then they also brought so many like solutions and what they would like to see UBC do for Indigenous students, and particularly Indigenous students in health.
Mhm.
Um, so like, incorporating more Indigenous knowledge in academia, and giving more funding to support more opportunities for these students, and finding more ways that students can, build community together, more
Mhm.
mentorship programs, more holistic forms of support. Um, so yeah, that's why we chose to sort of have those ideas for change at the top of this list. But then you can scroll down and see some of the successes that they've mentioned, and then going into the challenges that, they want to see addressed.
Mhm. Yeah, and if you want to see either of these these are like our quick reads, but if
Mhm.
you want to see either of these in more detail, this is our blueprint, which is essentially a like report, but it
Mhm.
doesn't look like a report because we did not want it to look like a
Mhm.
typical research report. So
Mhm.
instead, it looks like this. So this has a lot of our information from the project. I would really say that this is the story of our project. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think you can really understand what we learned without understanding the story. Um, so this to us was really important to talk about the legacy of Indigenous research.
Mhm.
Again, what you might find in an introduction of a research paper, like all the elements are here, they're just presented differently. Kind of the start of our story, our guiding principles, the methodology, the people who've been around us, how we did our interviews. And then in here, you'll see the findings of the same things that were presented on the infographics.
Mhm.
But they have a little bit more probing here. So there's some opportunities to kind of reflect and sit with what you've learned, not jump immediately into action, but to really kind of digest it. And then continue on with kind of like, okay, time to take action. And then here's our little like think pieces scattered throughout what might be a discussion in a research paper
Mhm.
on where are we going? And kind of, yeah, what the next move might be. And then we talk about our other projects in here too, like the roots. Oh my goodness, my computer's lagging here. The roots circle, how that came about, and some of our other learnings. But yeah, it's pretty comprehensive. It's also on our website if anyone wants to read it in more detail. Um, but yeah, I feel like those are like our big main project learnings.
That's so cool. I love how you guys presented it, that it's not kind of like a conventional report and there's a lot of imagery that holds a lot of information within it. I think that makes it a lot more digestible to read, you know, because sometimes when you have a research report, it's so dry and you're like, oh, I don't want to read this, but I have to. So I
Yeah.
like that it's like that.
Yeah,
With
that was
that,
a
like, oh, yep, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say that was a big part of, getting the final products for this project was sort of letting go of the colonial expectations of
Mm,
sharing knowledge. We didn't want to just, like Sophie said, we didn't want to just have a report that had like introduction, methods, findings, conclusion.
mhm,
We didn't want it to feel like a typical academic report. So
mhm.
that's that's why we have the final product that we do.
I love it. It's so beautiful. Like, and it's like a magazine almost, you know, like I don't know if people really remember magazines, but it makes me think of like going to the store and you're like going through a little magazine. I
Yeah,
like
like
that.
at the cash register when your mom's checking
Yeah, yeah, and you're like, this one
it.
looks like a good one.
Ah.
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah, that's what I think of when I see it, which is cool. I think that you're kind of modeling other ways to for other people to utilize creative ways to um publish their research.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
and there's such joy in creativity. Like I had way more fun writing this than I would have sitting in a blank Word document and typing out everything that we did. So,
yeah, yeah, which is a nice way to motivate people to finish, right? Like
mhm.
sometimes research can be left empty-handed, you know, and not done.
Mhm.
For accessing it, is it just on your website here that we can access it?
Yeah,
That,
it is
yep.
just on our website right now, and we are in the process of actually getting a new website, which we're hoping will be up this week. So right now it's still there, it's still accessible. It's just not the most lovely layout. But be
Mhm.
patient, it's coming. But yes, it is on our website. We are, I mean, we're still thinking about how to disseminate this and what it could mean to publish something like this.
Mhm.
So conversations are being had, but yeah, right now it's pretty newly finished. So
Exciting. Everyone can check out the new magazine.
yeah.
This is probably about our last question here is what do you think are the next steps in continuing to make space at UBC for Indigenous-led research?
Yeah. All right, did you want to go first?
Um, yeah, I think um probably one of the main ways would just be to get people in more like visiting modes. I think that research needs to involve more visiting, more relationality, more getting to know one another,
Mhm.
getting together with your peers and your colleagues over coffee. That's something that we try to do, like with our campus partners. Um, sharing challenges, offering support to each other. That's something that we've talked about a lot, like within our, I guess, like office culture is something that we're very happy to have. Um,
Mhm.
just making the world of this work feel smaller by getting to know the people in it. I think that's one way that we can um, make make space at UBC for this type of research is to really, yeah, embody the decolonial ways of being with one another.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I really echo that. Like this place needs a cultural shift, so that we can do our work and do what we came here to do and see change that we want to see. When it comes to actual like next steps for like us specifically and all of you people who now have learned about this and now get to do something with it.
Mm,
Um, I think it's really about like honoring the knowledge we've heard. And that has been a theme in research for a long time of like, people taking knowledge and not actioning it, and then that really sucks. But I
mm,
think our responsibility to respond is to honor the knowledge that we've heard, really hear those stories, reflect on them, action them, learn from them, and then start to like shift the perspectives of other people. So maybe you hear this and you talk to a colleague who's never considered this, and it kind of, opens their worldview a little bit, and they talk to another colleague. Or maybe you have really close ties to UBC leadership and you're like, you need to hear this.
mm,
Um, and then from there, kind of start to then build the structures that we have the information on, like, because we've done all these conversations, like we know what we need to do, we just need the room to do it. Uh,
mm.
so yeah, I think it's really about collaborating and sharing this knowledge.
That's so cool. I like what Arya was saying, like we need to make this circle small and
Mhm.
not small in the sense of like no one can join, but small in the sense
Mhm.
that you know a lot of people
Yeah.
and the that it's strengthening those relationships within community. So
Mhm.
cool. And um, thank you, you guys both. I'm so excited that your program exists. I hope it's here for a while. And yeah. And do you guys have any closing remarks before we end the webinar?
I think so. I mean, thank you to everyone for listening and joining in. And please come, like, if you want to come to a root
Mm-hmm.
circle, we're planning some more for the spring and the summer. Like, please come. Everyone is welcome.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I've loved sort of seeing everyone's comments pop up and just like grazing down at them. So it's so lovely to see everyone's support and to see some familiar names down there as well. So thank you so much
Mhm.
for joining and for listening. And thank you, Serene, for hosting this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so great to connect with you guys and learn more about both the project and the program, and just kind of talking about research in a different lens and amplifying it so that hopefully the next generation can just feel like supported, and they don't have to do these initial steps of like, okay, these are what's going on, like, like so I like
Yeah,
I hope that this is going to help our next generation.
yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so.
Thank you. And just before we end this webinar, we'd love to bring your attention to our next webinar. So we have Aria and Sophia back, and along with Maram, and they'll be doing an info session for the Roots for Indigenous Partnered Research Cluster. So they briefly spoke about that today, but they'll go in a bit more in depth this Thursday. And then at the end of the month, we will have back Dr. Sarah Connors, and she'll talk about life stage transitions and hormonal change and all-inclusive Indigenous perspective on menopause. And that is on February 25th, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And all of our webinars are free to sign up for on our website at www.learningcircle.ubc.ca. Thank you so much, Aria. Thank you so much, Sophie. We look forward to seeing you guys back on Thursday to learn more about the cluster. Um,
Yeah. Thanks for having us. And thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day.